Fag,
Fairs,
fairs, fake,
farts.
fairs.
I'm gonna get you.
You don't even know what death is. So have you had like a handlebar mustache?
Uh, I've had it not in public. I experimented before where I like shaved. I'm like, look at this. So I've done that. I've done the mustache again temporarily while shaving. I'm like, let me test that out. I pretty much anything you can do with a beard and facial hair, I've done.
One day, one was for fun. You gotta do just the mustache. Just the mustache. Let's see. One
I don't know,
day.
man. Every time I go through the mustache, I look like I shouldn't be within 100 yards of a school.
For movies and video games, welcome to Marie Plays It All. Today's episode is a deep dive with Jose.
Which is
I
don't
mean,
not too deep. I can't swim.
I'm not very good either. I can doggy paddle. We're gonna doggy paddle dive.
I'm tall enough. I can deep dive up to like maybe 5'8" pool, because then I can just walk around.
Okay, see, if I deep dove, I would just be lost in the abyss because I'm short, and I'd just be like, "Oh, Marie, she's gone." Just be like a little ripple of water, and it's like, "Ah, she deep dove too far." That little thing. But anyway, our deep dive today is about dun, 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 Rob Zombie Halloween. Whoop, whoop. Ooh,
The shape.
the shape. I love it. I love it. You know, in the Rob Zombie Halloween one, the shape doesn't exist. He's not the shape because there's no mystery, really. He's just Michael
Yeah.
Myers, you know? I just that just hit me right now.
Or Mikey if you're close to him, you know.
Oh yeah.
You know, his closest people call him Mikey.
If you're good to him, you call him Mikey.
Yeah.
Um, so but are we mad about the fact that the shape doesn't exist and he's more human and more of a Michael Myers, or are we okay with it? We're gonna find out today on this deep dive. So Jose told me the other day that he was watching this movie, and I was like, "Oh, okay, okay, okay." And you said you didn't watch it in a long time, right?
Very long. I saw it when it first came out.
Hmm.
And then I saw the second one when it first came out, and then I never revisit them again. But I remember that I did enjoy the first one, so I'm like, let me go back to it. So I decided to watch it this week again.
Okay, and we have discussed it a little bit, and it was that discussion that led to, hey, why not do a deep dive on Rob Zombie's Halloween? Because it's kind of not controversial. Well, would you call that controversial? Like,
It's
there's feelings
polarizing.
about it. It's polarizing. There's feelings about it. Like I have not that I ever listen to reviews, especially critics reviews, but it only has 28% critics review on Rotten Tomatoes and then 59 for audience score, which seems right because a lot of people are on either side, like hating it or like loving it, and so that seems fair. A 59% for I think a lot of horror movies is not bad.
Yeah, I don't think it's too bad. And then
Mm-mm.
the critics, especially if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, when it comes to certain genres such as horror, it's always going to be lower. There's very rare exceptions because, it's not your dramatic masterpieces that they like to, go high
Yeah,
on.
yeah, because there's some of those that have really high ratings, and I'm like, no, what? Her? No, so I have a little bit of a criteria that we can go through. The first thing I want to talk about, which is what we don't like about it. What are some aspects about the Rob Zombie Halloween version or vision that kind of rubbed you the wrong way, or that maybe you're like, could have done without that, or that could have been worked on a little more?
Yeah, there was a few little things. First of all, I was not a fan on how they incorporated the mask in the first place. I felt
Hmm.
like there could have been a better way to get the mask into the picture rather than the boyfriend just happens to have the mask and he finds it on the floor when he goes into the bedroom. Seemed just a little too convenient at that point. So like I feel like they could have gotten a little more creative with the mask being such an important aspect of it. Like I feel like you want that to kind of blend in seamlessly and be more symbolic rather than, oh, I just found it on the floor when I went to go kill my sister.
Hmm.
So that was one thing that I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm nitpicking, but that could have been done better.
See, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind that. I was like, yeah, that is pretty convenient. Like, where did Michael Myers get it in the first place? Just the store, right? Just got it from a store. He just like robbed a store and then he found that mask somehow. I don't know. I didn't mind it. What would you have wanted to see? Like, how else would you have wanted the mask to be got?
I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't have anything specific. Just not like that. That was, that was it. I was just like, just not that. Like, you know, let's have him find it another way, or maybe he sees it earlier in the film, and you kind of get a little nod to it, and then he
Mm,
decides to go back to it when he's, ready to turn that corner from animal, uh,
yeah.
to human elimination. You know, he goes back to it like, okay, this is the time to do it, something like that. It just kind of seemed like he went up there with a goal of eliminating his sister, and it was just kind of like a side distraction, like, oh, what's that on the floor? Let me put this on. So it just seemed like an aside. So it
Mm,
lowered the importance to it, the symbolism to
hmm
it at that point in time. It's
And like,
nitpicky, I know, but
well, because I took it kind of in a way where he already eliminated the boyfriend at this point, right?
yeah.
And I know he doesn't look like the boyfriend, but I thought he was just like, oh, I'm gonna put this on and like fool her if she turns and looks at me real quick or something like that. Like, Michael Myers plays it's like pranks type thing. I thought that maybe that was the reason why he chose that mask specifically, like, oh, I'm gonna fool my sister, put it on. And also, there's some people who don't like the little kid Michael Myers with the clown costume, like walking through the house because the big mask on the kid body. I think that's
Huge.
so creepy. I like it though.
Yeah.
I like that
Well, it's
look. I think it's scary.
it's like with a kid when they put on their like parents' sneakers and they're just like, going around in there. That's what that was. It's one of those things like, don't worry, you'll grow into it.
And you will. He definitely will. Okay, that's a good one. I as much as I actually like the spoiler alert, I actually like the fact that Michael's backstory is told and that they like were humanizing him. I thought the beginning with him in the as a child was too long. I thought that was a little too long, but I know there's part of me that's like, I understand because you're giving him a backstory and stuff, but I also think Rob Zombie wanted to have his wife in there as much as he can. And honestly, her performance in this movie while Michael is in the asylum as the child and she's like talking to him there, I thought this is one of her Sherry Moon Zombie's best performances.
Mhm.
Not that I've seen her in every movie that she's been in, but she wasn't terrible as the mom. I didn't think.
No, no, I don't think so. I didn't think she was either. I think they did a good job of establishing, the connection between her and him. Like there was, you believed her as a mother who really loved like her child in there.
Mm,
So that's why, when she not only when she meets her end, but when she like for the first time sees her son in the act, it was kind of heartbreaking. And you could see it in her face, and she did a good job of showing that because she knew what he had done, but knowing and seeing are two different things. So that
mhm,
scene, it made it more powerful because to that point, she established well through her acting that she really did care. There was a loving relationship with her kid.
mhm. And I think that like I know people always like crap on him for casting his wife in every movie, but she was perfect for this role. I think she was like a perfectly good choice. So that's not something I don't like, but I do think the beginning intro part is a hair too long.
I can see a light trimming. I can't think of like any scenes that could be completely like taken out because I feel like they all served an importance. But you could have maybe lightly trimmed a little bit of the time at the hospital
That's
in there. So
the
like,
part really.
yeah, little things here and there you probably could have trimmed in there, but I felt like all the scenes were vital to establishing like his journey, going from like disturbed kid in an abusive household to, emotionless shell of a,
Hmm.
eliminating machine. There was this other thing, and you could probably speak more to this as possible because you've like seen the original Dark Carpenters like so many times. But after he gets out, after he escapes from the hospital and he heads back to Haddonfield, it didn't really work for me because it felt like Rob was trying to recreate some John Carpenter scenes
Hmm.
when he first like gets to Haddonfield, so
Yeah.
trying to recreate certain things, and it didn't really work for me because until that point, like you've already set to create something new, to to reimagine this entire world. To then that late into the movie, because at that point you're probably over an hour into the movie. So then now try to recreate things. It fell off. It pulled me out a little bit where I was like, no, you know, keep cooking. You're doing well. Like just do your own thing. Trust yourself. Don't try to recreate something that was already done and was already done well. You're not going to match it. So just keep doing your own pace, your own style. So that was one other thing that I was like, we could either eliminated that or saved it, twist it into something else.
Hmm. I can see that. I can see how, I mean, you're already changing it so much to be your own vision, so why try to recreate it to match the John Carpenter? But I mean, he must have been thinking like, I know these iconic scenes like mean a lot to the fans, and you can tell that he's like passionate about the Halloween franchise. So I think that was just like fan service probably, and it it kind of feels a little bit out of place because it made him seem more of like the supernatural stalking type Michael Myers, like the Shape. It seemed to be more like what that's what the Shape would do, not like this like human Michael Myers, like humanized Michael Myers. But I understand that if he did add it for like fan service factor, I mean it kind of worked on me a little bit. I was like, oh, like it does feel out of place, I understand, but I kind of like some fan service stuff. So I was like, oh, he's outside the classroom. It doesn't make sense, but okay. So I can see it being a little bit like, yeah, this is kind of going off like what your vision seems to be, just to be fan service.
Yeah, I think a lot have to do with the placement. Like now
Hmm.
you're gonna do it that deep into the movie. Like if it would have been maybe earlier or something like that, then or if it would have been sprinkled a little bit throughout, I don't think it would have seemed that out of place. But we was just like so different, and then it was like, oh wait, remember this? Like, it's,
This is
so,
still a Halloween
but
movie, remember?
yeah,
The only other thing I can think of right now that I didn't like is only in the director's cut, and that's the scene of how Michael escapes. But when you rewatch the theatrical cut, and that's the one that I typically watch. But I remember when I first rented it after I saw it in the theater, I was so excited, and then I remember how he escapes, the scene, how he escapes comes up, and I'm like, this isn't it. Like this isn't it. And I remember being in the theater walking out thinking, hey, that was kind of tame for a Rob Zombie movie. It didn't have a scene like this. And then I rented the director's cut and I was like, ah, there it is. There's that scene. There's that Rob Zombie gross flair that I really liked was cut out of the other one.
they're like Rob, we don't know if that one's gonna work for the theater.
No,
So
I don't think so.
oh, wait, I just did not think of something. And this has to do with like the music, like the score.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's I feel I can't remember all the exact points, but at some point it felt out of place or like mistimed with it. Like one of the examples that pops in my head is when uh his theme music hit when he's
Yeah.
leaving the high school. And I was
Yeah.
like, what, why is this playing right now? It just like, at certain part, the timing seemed a little off at that point. Like, so that was another minor thing that in certain scenes kind of pulled me out where I was like, this isn't fitting with what I'm seeing on screen. If that first time you bring back that, like,
Yeah.
it's got to be a scene. It's got to be something big's got to be happening, not just him running away from school.
Yeah, I imagine it more like a scene that's like slow and dark and more like thought provoking, like more like he's gonna. And but see, but then I think about, I guess, why they put it there is because I'm just assuming this is everything's an assumption, but that's when he knows and he's excited to first go get his first human offing. You know what I mean? Like that's, but then he could have put it like not during, but maybe after that, like when he's like looking down at the kid's body, he could have been maybe the theme could have come. Not when he's like running happy down the hallway, but I guess maybe it's because like that's where it's like, okay, he's like fully Michael now. He's going to do the transition to get rid of people. You know what I mean? I was wondering if maybe that's why, but it does seem a little weird. It's this bright scene and he's running down the hallway and it's all like, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so that was another thing that popped in my head. There was a couple other incidences with like the score where it's just like it didn't seem to fit. That was the main thing that popped in my head because it was early on in the movie. I was like, what? Okay, all right, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah, like I would have probably even waited till he was adult Michael Myers. Like wait till he's like the adult one.
Perfect timing if you don't use it the whole movie because we're doing all that, like everything's going through, and then pull it out when he pulls the mask from the house, when he rips through the
Ooh.
floor and
Mm,
pulls out the mask and puts it
mm.
on.
Ooh.
Boom! Hit
Oh,
us with the
oh,
theme
oh.
song right there and then. It's like, okay, now it's on. Now we've gotten the whole backstory. We saw him getting to this point. Now we are in Halloween.
Oh, I got chills. I got chills when you said that. I was like, damn, can you imagine the first time you hear the Halloween theme in the whole movie, it's then? Oh yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the casting and acting performances. Tyler Mane is Michael. Thoughts?
First of all, physical presence. Like he just, the way he towered, the way he walked and he moved, even when he was chained up, with the shoulders up and just kind of slowing around. It was like you see him, you do not need to know anything else about him. You're like, this is an intimidating figure. This
Hmm.
is someone I don't want to see in a back alley anymore. So, just physically, a great casting. And then that's the thing. That's what you can judge this character off of is, you know, physical movement, how they look, because this isn't a character. This isn't Freddy who's going to be dropping jokes and talking up a storm uh, in there. So based off of that, I felt it was a great casting. Even when they get to the scene in the stall where you have this other guy who's not tiny himself. He's a big
No,
broad guy, but he looks tiny compared to Michael Myers in there. So it really like just drills home the fact that you're not taking this guy down one on one physically. You
no.
either better get some numbers, or you better get some kind of weapon. But one on one, you are not. There's going to be very few people on this earth that are going to be able to take him down. So, and that I think it was a perfect casting for the vision that Rob put out there of this just imposing, powerful, strong Michael Myers.
That was such a smart choice to have such like a big statured man that you're going to see him just, fight in the stall. And it was like, okay, yeah. So it's not just even if he's matched in size, it's like it doesn't matter. He just has his strength. And I like that like Tyler Mane to me was perfect. I found that he was so intimidating in the way he moved, the way he looked, even when you see his eyes sometimes, like there's sometimes in the other movies, it's like when you see Michael Myers' eyes, you're like, but his eyes are really piercing and he looked evil and mad all the time. Um, and just for the fact alone that they're taking away the supernatural aspect, you need a big, strong, hulking man. You need that. And I know some fans like actually criticized how big and huge he was. But Michael Myers in the other Halloween movies seems like he should have been this big guy because he was this unstoppable, super strong guy, like crushing everything. But they had the supernatural aspect, and in this one, it's like you need to have a guy that looks like that, and I think he was perfectly cast. Perfect.
I agree 100%.
Well, I guess we can talk about Kid Michael. What's his name? I don't pronounce it. Dag
They
Fairsh. Fag, Fairs,
Fairs,
Fake,
Farch.
Fairs. What do you think about that
Yeah.
kid? Or not kid
Well,
anymore,
like,
but that guy.
yeah, I know we're not gonna talk about part two, but after rewatching part two, it made me
Mhm.
appreciate more this casting in part one. This kid, kid at the time, his facial expressions were on point. The way he looked, and when he went like emotionless, and then the stare and the glare, you can see something is wrong. There's something broken in this character, and the kid was able to do that just with his face, just with his the stoicness of his face sometimes. That even when he did like speak and communicate, there was something off with it. So I think, and the first time I watched it, I don't think I really appreciated it until I saw the recasting in the second one. I was like, oh no, no, yes, that first kid, that is the way.
The emoting was perfect. I
Mhm.
agree. What about Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis?
I mean, I felt he did a good job for for the role. Um, I don't think he was written as well as the original Loomis, but acting wise, I think he did a good job. You know, he was serviceable in it. I've seen him in other things. He's a really good actor all around, but he was believable in his role. And then even um, there's that scene where he's pretty much telling him like, "There's nothing else I can do." Like for you, where he's pretty much telling him like, "This is the last time you're gonna see me." Like you can see that emotion in his face where it looked like it wasn't an easy decision. And then that got backed off by like when he finally escapes, how quickly he was to action. We're like, oh no, like that guilt of maybe me stepping away and me leaving and not be able to help him, like, did that cause this? And, you know, he had this sense of urgency afterwards to put a stop to it. That was all made believable by his acting in that scene where he's kinda telling them, like, "Hey, this is it. Like, there's nothing more I can do for you."
I did think for a bit that he was like over too intense when I first watched it. And the second time I watched it, I'm like, he's pretty intense. But then I forgot that's what I forget. I forget how intense Dr. Loomis gets in the first one, in the second one, and then in number four and number five. I'm like, he gets like beyond intense. He's like aggressive and kind of crazy. So I'm like, no, Maurice, he's not too intense. You think about the other Dr. Loomis? I think they added a lot more personality with Malcolm McDowell. I feel like I don't know why, but Rob Zombie choosing to cast Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis was just like perfect. It just seemed so right to put him in like a horror setting, but as like a good guy in the horror setting. Yeah, I thought he was good. I like him as it. Okay, Scout Taylor Compton as Laurie.
I think it was good. Overall, I feel like they did a good job with the casting, and she did well. I think one of the things that was good is her and her group of friends was believable. Like
Mm.
I believe that these were like friends. Like I kind of liked the little group together. So she did a good job of showing, that aspect. Just her enjoying life and the friendships and all of that. And I think he really nailed it in that final scene, when they're going, like, through the house and panic in her face, but then when she takes the shot, that scream that
Oh,
she
I
let
that's
out,
yeah.
that
Oh,
was that was a shit. I was like, "Ooh," like, I felt that. I was like, "Oh, yes," like, even after all of this, just even after this person's been after her, tempted, has taken out people, almost took out one of her closest friends. After all of that, it's still not gonna be an easy task, you know, shooting someone right there when they're on the
mm-mm.
ground, even if it's a complete stranger to her at that point in time. So the way once it happened, that scream that came out, like it just seems so realistic and so so much like pain behind it. So I that's the scene that really sticks out when it comes to her performance.
I absolutely love that scene. Maybe one of my favorite scenes in any Halloween movie. And I just love the close up to her mouth and the blood everywhere. And it's just like a release to her, but also it's like everything that she's been holding in finally coming out, the fear, like also like, oh my God, I just KILLED someone, like and how often does it happen in a movie where you're watching and the person and like villain is down and you're thinking just shoot him in the head. Like you have to do it. You have to get him in the head and then you'll be done with it. Like don't just walk away because we know he's gonna get up. And finally in a movie they show it. And it's just like I loved it. I loved that. The thing that I think she was really good too, and they did a good job of like modernizing her and giving her a little more personality than in the original one. It's just her voice to me was so like innocent, high-pitched, girly. It's hard because when you think about Laurie Strode in the original ones, like oh my God, Jamie Lee Curtis had this like low, really low, like the contrast between their voices is just huge. And to me, I like that's just me nitpicking about a human that can't change a thing about it because it's her voice. But it's just her voice a little bit to me sometimes. I was like, maybe see, it sounded so like innocent, girly, but I mean, she redeemed it at the end with that scream. I mean, that voice with that scream matched.
It's funny you say that because I'm not a fan of her crying. You don't.
Yes.
It's more in the next one where you get a lot of it, and it was like kind of piercing, uh, and all of that. But I'm not a fan of her crying, so it is like funny that you mentioned that. But here we don't get to see too much of her crying because for most of the part that she's in there, she's just living her life. She's not the
Yeah.
tortured like being yet. So I can see that. I can definitely see that.
Yeah, I don't know why, but and yeah, of course Danielle Harris as Annie's perfect because like I remember when I first saw it and I freaked out because I'm like they're bringing back Jamie for 4 and 5. I was so excited. I'm like that's so brilliant. I'm so glad that she came back and she has some scenes in that movie. Oh God, heartbreaking. When she's like fighting for her life and like what a horrifying scene. Like she's amazing in that movie. So good.
She did a really good job in there. That was nice little see that was a way without like recopying things to kind of
Yes.
pay a little homage to the old stuff, kind of bringing that character back. Speaking of Danielle, this is has nothing to do so much with the acting. This is something
That's
that's
okay.
like I don't know if I was thinking back and I'm like, wait, did I imagine this? So is it me or did Michael Myers handled the women different than he handled the males? Like I felt in certain scenes, like the way he was taking care of them was a little different. So like first with the dad, you know, he tied him up, of course, because he wasn't gonna be able to take him out. Tied him up, one quick, right.
Hmm.
With the other guy, just beat him with the bat until he was done. But then with like his sister, he took his time and he
Hmm.
kind of let her crawl around and he was following and snip snip and then kept going and snip snip. So he kind of took his time. And then I think he kind of did the same with the foster mother. Like the dad, he was already out of the picture, the foster dad.
Mm-hmm.
But with mother, he kind of toyed her. He had her in the corner, then he threw her down. He let her crawl away, and then he grabbed her again and threw her at the table. And then he kind of did that with Annie. He did that with her. He had her upstairs, but then he kind of toyed with her. And in the end, he didn't even take her out. He was pretty much like tortured
Left her.
at
Hmm.
that point, left her there just slicing and dicing. And even I think the other girl didn't he like bring her to the shack because when he brought Lori there, the other girl was there and she was down on the ground. So it's like he the way he handled like the women, it seemed to be a little more sadistic on his end, while a lot of the guys, it was quick kills with it. There was only one guy that I remember where he also kind of took his time. So like I wonder because he had a connect the two people that he had a connection with were both female. It was his mother and it was his little sister.
Hmm.
Those are the two
Hmm.
that he had a connection for. So like I wonder if that maybe has something to do with it. I don't know if it was done on purpose, but that was like a little something that I like picked up. And then the one guy, which I'm sure we'll talk about, where he
Yeah.
kind of did a similar method. Again, it was like someone with a connection.
Yes, I was just gonna say, I mean, someone who cared about him. I wonder, I wonder what the point of that was, like what was behind it. Like if it was to do with that, to me that's almost like animalistic in a sense where it's like cat and mouse. I know sometimes cats will like just play with a mouse before they like get it, right? Before they like off it. They'll like play with it and bat it and beat it and like hurt it and stuff like that. And that's what it sounds like to me. Like it's more like a play thing. And it's just, yeah, for fun to see how far you can push it. Maybe he likes to hear them in pain. I don't know. It could be just like, well, you're that much weaker than me. So I'm just gonna like, whatever, you're not a challenge or anything. I don't know. I don't know what the
Yeah.
thing was. Or if it is the whole like, well, if you're attached to me or if you care about me or we have a connection at all, I'm gonna make you regret it, or I'm gonna show you like I can't be cared about, you shouldn't care about me, I'm not worth caring for, I'm gonna just destroy you.
There was multiple impactful eliminations in this one. And one of the one was the janitor, well, the caretaker, I call him,
Mhm.
played by Johnny Trejo in this one, who pretty much was there since he was a kid, would talk to him, treated him with respect. You know, even when someone else would try to like abuse him or talk down to him or mess with his things, he'd be like, "Hey, hey, like stop it! Like show some respect with it." And when he's escaping, like the guards takes him out quickly. Everyone else you see they're already done. Like he was just on a mission to escape, and it was just quick elimination of everyone. But then when it came to him, he didn't just quickly eliminate him. Like he took his time. He seemed to his plan, which is kind of like to make it last and make it as painful as possible, like for him while he's there, like begging overall. And it just seemed because like at that point, any like trace of humanity has pretty much been wiped away from him. And I think the fact that you have a character here who who cares for him, it was just more like a how dare you like try to care for me or think that
Hmm.
I would care back for you enough. Like you are nothing, just like everyone else. So he seemed to be making a point with that elimination, where he was just like, he slammed them around, he drowned them for a little bit, but not enough to take them out. Then pulled them out. Then he grabbed the TV. So it was just like it was the only one in that hospital that was like all this multiple step and time consuming. So you seem to be making a point of like, how dare you? Like who do you think you are that you think you can talk me down?
That so impactful. That one scene was so, but also I think it's so like Rob knew what he was doing to the audience when he put that in there because he's like, we're gonna make you care so much about this guy. And Danny Trejo, that was like one of my favorite movies I've ever seen him in. Like I believed that he really cared about him. It's like, I've been good to you, Mikey. It's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
it's heart-wrenching. And it's like, of course Rob Zombie's gonna be like, yeah, you like this guy? Isn't he a sweetheart? Oh yeah? Well, I'm going to show you. Michael doesn't care. I don't care. And I'm going to make, because I know that made you care. And he just held nothing back with that. And that was, I think, the way of like showing the audience, like, no, you think that Michael can even have a heart? You think that he's going to get attached to somebody? No, you are wrong. And it was extra brutal because I think he knew that it was going to pull at her heartstrings too.
Yeah, and
Sadistic.
it solidified the aspect of like this is a cold, unempathetic machine right now.
Yeah.
There's no humanity left at this point in time.
Okay, so let's get into what we think about the whole. I'm going to put cinematography with like directing style and like Rob Zombie's whole interpretation because I don't know if he does like his own cinematography, but you know that when you're watching a Rob Zombie movie, you know you're watching a Rob Zombie movie because it all feels that like that grit and that grain. Like I haven't watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it has all that type of vibe where it's just
Feels
like what does
dirty.
Daniel say? You can smell it, like you
Yeah.
can smell it, like you can taste that, like those movies, like, and that's what I feel about Rob Zombie movies. Like they all have a style, you know, when you're watching one. What do you think? What do you think overall about his directing style in this movie and like how he interpreted everything and the look and feel of it?
Yeah, I think it felt like cinematography wise, there was really nothing that sticks out.
Hmm.
Uh, image wise, it was all very, not saying that it was bad, but it wasn't
Hmm.
anything where you're not watching like, oh my God, the way that scene was shot and that angle and the framing of that. There was nothing that like really stood out like visually like that. But as a whole, it fit this world that he created.
Hmm.
Just like you have that internal like damage in Michael Myers, that darkness inside him, that kind of was portrayed in the world
Hmm.
overall. In his interpretation, it made it very, very gritty,
Yes.
very grounded. Kind of got rid of the supernatural aspects of it overall, where this is just brute force that that Michael Myers is coming at you. His we got to look into his family home, and that was just like very Rob Zombie interactions overall.
Yeah.
So you've got
Script
that
dialogue.
abuse,
Yeah.
exactly, that abusive household. um you get the zombie violence, the zombie vulgarity, the zombie dialogue. You get that sprinkled throughout the entire thing, so you know it's a Rob Zombie one because it's going to be very uncensored and as vulgar as possible. This one, it wasn't as much as you get with some of his other movies, like Devil's Rejects, for example, House of a Thousand Corpses. It's all over the place. That's every
Hmm.
conversation is like that. Here, it's a little more spread out, so it doesn't hinder the movie in any way. But I feel his style fit this version, this reimagination of Michael Myers because the world around him kind of reflected what that character was within.
Wow, I don't even know what I could say because I agree with everything you said. I also I really appreciate his whole reimagining of this is what this is why I don't look at it like like a remake altogether. It's a re imagining and like a totally new vision for something. And like I grew up with Halloween, it was always my favorite franchise. And I watched this and I was like, yeah, like I it felt so different from the Halloween that I grew up with that it was good. Like I was like, oh God, I can see like this whole new idea for him and him really becoming like just about like a messed up kid from, could be some like nature, but mostly his nurturing. I thought that was super, super smart. And I felt the Rob Zombie grit and the all of that, but like I said, it's so much better in the theatrical cut because in the director's cut, it's just too far for me in the Rob Zombie uh area arena. It's like too much that way. But I found that the theatrical cut is like the perfect amount of just like horror and Rob Zombie-esque vibes. And then also there was enough Halloween in there for me. And I as a hardcore die-hard Halloween fan, I appreciated his whole interpretation. You could tell, you could feel that he respects the Halloween movies in the franchise. I feel like he really, I don't know if I felt it as much in number two, but in this one, I was like, oh yeah, you're a fan of Halloween and you want to do your own thing, but also do the franchise justice, I think. So yeah, I loved everything, but there were some shots. So there are some shots, especially Michael Myers when he's a kid, that's like filmed slanted, and I don't know if it's just like to make you uncomfortable, like there's some like uneasiness to it, or if it's like to mimic like a head tilt, like I don't know what it is, but there's like some of him as a kid, like the camera's like tilted like this, and it just like that's some like cinematography, little tiny filming aspect that I'm like, what does he mean? Why is it tilted? What is he trying to say?
There were certain things where they kind of uh did the perspective a lower perspective, which
Yeah.
made him even I think they did it as a kid as he's stalking his sister going down the hallway. They went from
Yes.
a lower angle, so it made him look bigger as a kid. but then as an adult too, it made already massive person look even bigger when they did do those shots.
Yeah, smart. Okay, so I wanted to know because you're really into slashers more than I am. And I wanted to know, as a slasher status movie, what is this to you? Is this like where would this be? Say there's like a chart and like green is like, oh, it's kind of like a mild slasher. And then there's like the yellow, it's like, oh, it's not bad. And then there's like a red. Like where would you put this as a slasher movie rating?
Okay, so we're thinking like traffic lights here. Um, I honestly, I would put it in the red, just because of the level of brutality. You know, the original Halloween, it's a classic on its own, but you know, it heavily relied on mystery, on tension, on
Mm,
atmosphere, it things like that. This one did not go in that direction. This one was pure brutality in there. So it's two completely different you know, styles of slasher here. This one didn't hold back. It was like, you know, if you're gonna come on this journey with me, you better be ready for the whole journey. Okay.
hmm.
There's no curtain here, there's no training wheels. You're gonna see what is happening. So I think that's a good strength of a slasher. And then the other aspect I think that kind of elevates to me, and this is a personal preference, is the psychological aspects of it. So okay, you know, slasher is just having eliminations. That's cool. But if it's just about the eliminations about it, then it comes down to okay, how cool are the eliminations? And that's kind of what the movie hinges on is the creativity of the eliminations. This one didn't have to do that because it it focused more on the psychological aspects of the character. That's where it hinged everything on. So then when the elimination started happening, there was meaning to them, regardless on how creative they were or anything like that. There was substance to the actions that were happening. We see, yes, this wasn't an innocent kid at the beginning. This was a kid who was obviously disturbed, but there's still a level of humanity to him. So we see that humanity slowly being chipped away as the scenes like go on. And then, you can recognize, you can actually call the pivot point where the last bit of it goes away, when he finds out that you're not leaving this hospital and he
Yeah.
finds that out, you see it right there. And, uh, that ends up in action next time he sees his mom, which then leads to his mom eliminating herself in a very powerful scene because it powerful in the concept of like we've seen this love and this is the last connection, and then he doesn't speak again for like 15 years. So like that whole sequence there kind of broke him. So when he gets out, when you see the brutality towards the janitor, towards everyone else, it makes perfect sense. It gives more like again more substance to the eliminations. Than that eliminations for elimination's sake, and that's why I think I would put it up there towards the red.
Absolutely putting up there towards the red. And the thing is like I love the OG Halloween movie because of the tension. I like how there's like no blood in it except for Laurie's one cut. I like how it's dark and like you say, the mystery and the stalking and how he's just like so stoic. And I love that. And this is like the total opposite end of the spectrum, this one, but I love that. And I think there's a place for both of them in this world. And I understand that I guess people wanted to see a remake, I guess maybe that was like more true to the original. I don't know what they want. I don't know because I think when I think of like a remake or re-envisioning or reimagining, I think it's gonna be something totally new, but like keep some of the same lore or whatever. But I think like you say with the slasher part of it and the substance, it adds so much more substance even to just the movie in itself for there to be meaning behind every single elimination, and there's passion behind it all, and I'm all about like the whole passion aspect when it comes to movies like this, which is why I like that they kept the sister aspect. I don't like the Halloween versions where there's that they're not relate or they're not related. Yeah, Laurie and Michael aren't related because I'm like, where's the passion then? Where's your drive? What keeps you going? And I know there's there's serial killers and stuff out there who, there's just the passion for killing. I understand that. But to me, Halloween is, he has that passion for like the family aspect. And when you watch like serial killer documentaries and stuff, they always go into the backstory. They always go into the family aspect. They're always like, well, when he was a child, this happened and this happened. You're like, oh, I see. It's a broken home, broken person, or broken whatever, abuse, all that stuff. And I just thought the fact that they did that and you say went the more psychological aspect in this one was just brilliant, and just it really fit Michael Myers' story, I think, because you never know why he's is the way he is. And I love that Rob Zombie put a "this is why" on it. Love that.
Because even let's just take the foster parents elimination. Even
Mhm.
that just wasn't random. There was substance to it because like as he's taking her out, showing her the picture with
Yes.
with Lori in there. And like me, I interpret that as like there's a certain like uh anger and personal aspect, kind of like the janitor where he was like, you dare like raise my sister? Like you
Yeah.
dare like take her in? Like there was again a personal aspect because then why would he take the picture and put it in her face before he like fully eliminates her? There was that aspect of it. Like she is mine. Like how dare you?
No. My question is this. If Lori somehow knew that that was her in the baby picture, if she somehow showed like more of like a played along with, oh, it's okay, like I know you, blah blah blah. Like if she more do you think he eventually would have like killed her anyway? Like what do you think would have happened if she was more like, what do you think? Or is he just, what do you think? I don't
I
know.
Yeah, I mean I would not have liked if she did this, but if she would have like been like, oh, it's like, is that me? Or she would have found out, like, oh, it's my little brother, and like would have
Mhm.
like gotten protective about it. I don't think he would have reacted. I think that was her and the mom. Those are the two. It's like when she was a baby, he let her go. He was just like he did his thing and then just, carried her. He's waiting outside with the baby for like the mom. Like and the fact that the mom gave him that picture and he kept that picture for over 15 years. And that's probably all he has is the mask and that picture in his cell. So that was like again the very last tiny bit of string to who he was in there, that he tried to give it a chance. And as soon as she rejected him, that last string snip,
Done.
and then he was like, all right, you're going now with the rest of it.
I feel like Rob Zombie like really humanized him in every way, and they tried to be like, hey, there's a bit of like humanity in him, and he does care about his sister, and he cares and everything. But it still, it's like he's a monster. Like he's still a monster. It doesn't matter. Like you feel kind of bad. Like, oh, he had a horrible childhood, and oh, he just wants his sister, and aw. It's just funny how you can play on both those sides of you, where it's like, oh, poor guy, but no, wait, no, he just brutally put a TV on Danny Trejo. How?
It's like, oh, she's rejecting him. Oh, yeah, there's a body in the corner.
He can change. I can change him.
No, it's I'm definitely glad they didn't go in that direction because it wouldn't be believable on her end
No.
at all. But if they did, I think he would not have because he could have taken her out already
Oh
in
yeah.
there. So like I think if she would have given in and she would have been like, "Oh, it's you," blah blah blah. I don't think this version would have at all. I will say this, and let me know what your thoughts are.
Okay.
I do feel this movie is underrated overall. I do like it. I think it's underrated, and a lot of that probably has to do again because there's always that comparison to the original, and people love the originals, and sometimes it's hard for people to distinguish and separate and all that stuff. I think, I think if the original one never existed, and this is the first iteration of Halloween, I think it would be held in higher status.
Oh, absolutely it would. Of course it would. I look at some of the other like slasher movies that people love, and it's just like this is like better than some of them. Like I've absolutely. 100% think that audience score at least would be like way higher. This I don't know, just this movie actually I know it's like super brutal and it has a typical Rob Zombie script and the vulgarity and like the words and everything like that, but it actually has a lot of depth to it. Like if you actually watch it, like it's deep. Like it is actually deep, deeper than any other Halloween movie that exists. What would you give it? If you had to give it like a Rotten Tomatoes score, what would you rate it out of 100%? What would you rate it?
I think this at minimum would be high 70s. At minimum, I think this would be high 70s.
Yes, Jose. I was saying to you, I'm like 79, and I'm like, no, I think it push. I might give it like an 82, and I don't even know what I'm getting rid of all the other points from. Like,
Yeah,
I would probably
a
give it
lot,
like 80.
a lot of it would be like some, like we did a little nitpicking at the beginning, some
Hmm.
issues with the, with the score,
Mm,
aspect of it. Over some certain scenes were a little overextended, little things like that. But
mhm.
yeah, I think high 70s, maybe pushing it to low 80s. If it was Rotten Tomato score, I think would be good for this. But if it existed in its own vacuum, I think that's probably where it was at, but the majority of people will not be able to separate this from the original because, justifiably they love the original. But for many people, creating that separation of what was and what is very difficult.
Very difficult, which is why I don't like the David Gordon Green franchise. But it's because it's a continuation from the first one. This is not a continuation. This is a totally reimagined thing. So I totally forgive this and not that. I agree with you, Jose. I think this is severely underrated. I want to know what other people think. Do you think it should be like low score? Do you think it deserves to be down like 28%, as the critics say? Or do you like it and you think it's underrated like we do? Also, Jose poses the question of the friggin' day, of the friggin' last 13 years. And that is if this movie came out on its own merit and there were no Halloween movies prior, what would you think then? That is a good question, Jose.
Me personally, if there's something that I love and it gets remade, I'm not automatically against it. And I kind of prefer that it's not a carbon copy. I don't want a Psycho situation. I really saw
Oh
the
yeah.
first Psycho. You don't need to like redo it shot for shot for like the next movie in there. I don't mind if you change this, keep the essence, and this kept the essence of it, but just make it good. Make it make sense and make it good. Give me credit as a viewer, and this seemed to do that. Another franchise that did that and also has a very polarizing remake is Chucky, Child's Play. You had the original
Okay.
Chucky that we've gotten so many movies, then you had the remake, and they went in another direction. And a lot of people didn't like it because this isn't your serial killer in a doll, trying to take the soul of a kid. They went more high tech. They went with malfunctioning toy. But if you watch the movie, it works. Like if you
Yeah.
take away everything else and you're looking at its own, like it makes sense. They made Chucky sympathetic and it worked. That's another example of something that when did a true reimagining, a true remake, and did it in their own style and it worked. And I feel this Halloween did that. It's not like Nightmare on Elm Street, where they tried to redo the same thing,
Uh,
but with taking away all the good stuff from it, but still trying to keep it the same. Like they were literally
no.
recopying some of the eliminations from the original, and it just seemed like the Wish version of the original.
That's what it usually seems like when they try to do a carbon copy. It's like, why? This was like a masterpiece for its time, and it was a masterpiece in general. You cannot, like you say, it'll be a wish version. Like you can't
Yeah,
do it. Like at least to try something fresh and different, and hopefully some people will be on board. We're on board with it, Jose. We're on
yeah,
board.
more important. I'll just give one last question for
Mm,
you, Marie. As we know, there's the new series coming out. We did already find out that they are supposedly going to take place after the original, so it's kind of gonna do what they've done multiple times and just eliminate everything else and go back after the original. But let's say that was not the plan. Would you prefer for a series
Mhm.
if they would follow more the original or follow more like this, where we get more of the backstory and see him kind of become Michael Myers, or go more with the original where you know it's already there and we're just kind of seeing the cat and mouse game between like him and Laurie.
I hope it's not a cat and mouse game between him and Lori, because you just can't just ask someone if as a continuation from the original, a new Laurie Strode. And I just feel like you can't do that. If you want to do like a reimagining like Rob Zombie did, then fine. But I don't like the continuation aspect because I feel like you're never going to capture it. You're trying to capture the essence, or you should be at least if you're going right after it, trying to capture the essence and the feel of the original one. And that is just so difficult to do, especially like this day and age, you just can't do it. And there's a lot of people who probably, if they watch the first Halloween for the very first time now, they'd be like, this is boring. Like just the way things are now. So you can't, no. I would imagine I would want a reimagining, if anything, or like like a starting when he was a kid prequel type thing leading up to it and then having it completely different. Because if they like have a new like Laurie Strode and stuff, I'm gonna be like, so I know, like, don't do it. I don't know. I say no. I don't want that.
No, I'm with you in this. I feel it should be a reimagining. One, because don't try to replicate what you got out of the original. I mean, don't even try
Mm-mm.
to replicate what you got with this one with Halloween. Like,
Mhm.
you have a different format. You have an opportunity to do a reimagining in this long format where you can put a heavy focus on character development, character growth overall, and create like a full series where we get a deeper dive into this world than you can get in the movie. So use this format to your advantage and don't try to like replicate and copy what we've already gotten because we already have that.
Yeah.
So
And we like what we had for the most part. Like even some of the sequels or whatever cheesy and they're not well done, but we cherish them, okay? Just leave that there. Do your own thing and do a deep dive, like you say, into that. We're all about the deep dive in here.
yep.
Thank you for watching this episode of A Deep Dive with Jose on Marie Plays It All. You can find more of our content on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share and comment below. You can follow me on Instagram at Marie Plays It All. Where can we follow you, Jose?
You'll find me at This Is Mi Nombre on Instagram.
Never stop playing and never stop reimagining. Always
Yeah,
reimagine.
I like that. Imagination.
Joe Grizzly, bitch.